Hello, I'm Dave Perry from Wellmeadow, and you're listening to the SME Growth Podcast. Now, most business owners want to grow, and we're going to talk today about lots of ideas to get more leads and convert them into customers. So today's podcast is about marketing automation, and with me to talk about that is Rich Buckle. Hi, Rich.
Hi, good to be here. So this is a subject that we're coming across more and more at the moment, and it's actually quite an exciting area of marketing at the moment. I think when people think about automation, you might be thinking about robots in a factory doing different things, and it's not that kind of automation. It's much more about freeing you up to do the things that add value in your business. So there's a whole load of things that you can automate from across the marketing sphere, and it's about using your team effectively, or using, if you're on your own doing marketing, being able to free up your time to be able to do the creative things and use software, use different platforms to be able to sort of leverage your capabilities. So we want to just sort of jump into a few of those, I guess.
Well, I think the best way to bring that to life and explain it a bit is to go through some examples.
Yeah.
And I was going to start with one that maybe everybody is a bit more familiar with, because people may not even think of this as automation. And that's scheduling posts and emails. Now, we're so used to being able to do that now, and Instagram have just come out with a new release recently. You can schedule posts on Insta, but Hootsuite is a software product that maybe people have heard of, where you can schedule next week's posts. You can, if you're using MailChimp to send your mails out, you can schedule that for next week or tomorrow. So that very simple, that is automation. People won't necessarily think of that in the same group of things you can do, but it is. And so if people use that as an anchor point to say, right, that's the beginning of it, let's go through a few more now, which take that to ever more complicated ways of getting benefits from it and being able to get the most from your team, like you say. So think of another example.
I think one of the ones that we're quite keen on is form follow-ups and drip campaigns. So just to explain briefly what that is. So someone fills a form in on your website, you get a potential lead or contact, and you want to then maybe give them some extra information or keep in touch with them if they're not ready to buy right at that time. So that's a process that can be quite easily automated. So you can set up a workflow that when somebody fills in a form, that you can have a campaign that may be over 4 or 5 emails, just gives them extra bits of information, moves them along the buyer's journey to the point where perhaps they're ready for a call, or they just want to find out more about your business. And so there's a load that can all be automated, saving you huge amounts of time, because we all know we have the best intentions to follow up a lead, but the day gets away with you. But having that set up once, put the time in, and then that just runs in the background. So I think a key thing with that is it's not spammy. We're always very clear up at the front, say, if you don't want these emails, unsubscribe. We're not here to spam you. We're here to add value and bring you content that you want.
Yeah, I think that's important, even in those, to be able to give that unsubscribe option very prominently. And I think that's fair to say that example, the form follow-up one, is probably the second most popular one we see in all of our clients after the scheduling stuff just on a diary. If we get a bit more complicated now, then there's one that I quite like, and we talk about this a lot with our clients, of automatically working out who your visitor is on your website and what stage of the buyer journey they're at. So we have to use 2 different concepts around this. One is buyer personas, and one is buyer journeys, and that's the subject of a whole different podcast of its own, so we'll come back to that another time. But if by working out where somebody's been on the website, which forms have they filled in, which content have they downloaded, maybe how long do they spend on certain pages, and even added to that, which social media posts have they reacted to and which emails have they opened. If you build that whole picture, you can start to automate that categorization, that segmentation of somebody. Oh, they're that type of person, and they're at this stage of the buyer journey. Are they still at awareness stage, or have they moved right through to decision, or are they in between? And once you've done that, you can then tailor what happens next. So you might just send them an email, or if you've got some very clever software, and people will know that we use HubSpot, but other softwares do this as well. You can actually personalize the web experience based on who it is, and start to change images or headlines that relate to that person's needs. So that's just getting a bit more complicated now than the form follow-up or the schedule stuff. We're starting to get into a bit more clever stuff of working out who somebody is, segmenting, and not just sending everybody the same.
I think as well, just to add to that, using something like HubSpot, the blatant plug there, but any software like HubSpot or any other software that's got something like progressive forms. So we find sometimes that we've got different resources on the website, and people might come along and download a particular ebook, and we get a certain amount of information. But then we'll use a progressive form to say, well, we already know their name and their email and their company name, for example. If they come to download another asset or another ebook, the form can automatically suggest a different property, which may be, I don't know, company size, for example, which then starts to build up that picture of the person, the buyer persona, all of that, giving you more information for basically no extra effort. Yeah. So that's another kind of important thing on lead capture. I mean, another point is sales sequences, which we will often use in terms of automating. Again, like once you've got a lead in your pipeline, what do you do to kind of qualify them?
It's a different situation, this one, isn't it? This is where someone has maybe shown a bit of an interest. They've triggered, and we'll come to this later through lead scoring, but they've triggered some sort of qualification criteria that they haven't necessarily got a project ready to buy, but they're ready to interact with. Yeah. They're doing some sort of signal. And so you want to email them, and we all know people don't necessarily respond to the first email, and there's stats out there saying you've got to averagely email someone 7 times before they respond. So that's what sales sequences does. That sends out that series of emails that get either increasingly persuasive or desperate or humorous, depending on your style. And as soon as somebody responds to one of them, it stops sending the email thread. So that's what a sales sequence does, as opposed to, like you said earlier, about the form follow-ups. It's another form of automation. You decide how far apart the emails go and how humorous they go. And I've seen some great ones when you start looking around, by the 10th one where you're just about to give up. Often it's the most successful one because you've gone for humour. Say, right, that's it,
I think as well, maybe a sales sequence will maybe bring some stuff that's offline. So it may require you to make a phone call or do something, a LinkedIn connection or something like that. But again, that can be automated in terms of task follow-ups.
Yeah, it could be a task for somebody to do rather than an email that gets sent or something that the computer can do itself.
Define it in a playbook, that type of thing. I think the same point it all comes back to is whether or not it's the marketing team or the sales team, you're trying to automate the admin side of all of this so that your marketing team can be creative and your sales team can be talking to customers and
It's like you've got a playbook and you say, this is how we treat people who've got to this stage of showing interest, and everybody does it the same way then because they're being led to by the automation. So another one, I mentioned this earlier one about identifying where somebody is in their buyer journey and categorizing them. Another great use of automation we use quite a lot is lead scoring. Now, this is really quite clever in that you can award points or even deduct points to a lead in your CRM system based on different things that you do. Now, you can use that to inform that earlier point I talked about where you're starting to work out where they are in their buyer journey and who they are. But if you think of it more as the more they interact with you, the more they're worth doing something to, until they reach a threshold point, they become a marketing qualified lead or whatever your internal term is for that. They've done enough now. They've been on your website more than 3 times in the last 3 months. They've downloaded a couple of assets. They do open their emails. They may be following you on LinkedIn, and they get points for all of these things. Maybe you deduct points if they've only ever submitted a Gmail or Outlook mail type email address. You think, well, that's not necessarily a serious business typing. So you can add points and reduce points. So on our CRM, we have a list of how many points someone has earned through their behavior. And we can then have a bit of automation that goes on top of that, so that when it gets to 50 points, then contact the lead owner, the contact owner of that lead, and trigger them to maybe reach out and do something through sales sequences or pick up the phone. Yeah. So that's quite a good one.
I think that works particularly well when you've got longer buying cycles as well, or sales cycles. Because if you've got something that's quite transactional and you just want to, you're coming on a website just to buy something straight away, then having points doesn't really work. But if you're a sort of B2B business or you've just got a long buying cycle, then actually you're going to have multiple touch points, aren't you, before somebody actually buys your product. So if you're, buying a hot tub or something, you're probably going to do a whole load of research and download a few ebooks or watch some videos or do certain things before you get to that point of actually wanting to make a purchase. So being able to track all of that and systemize it. I think what we find as well is lead scoring can help reduce some of that friction in communication between the marketing team and sales team.
That's what I love about that, because we often go in when we're introducing our approach to clients, and we say that there needs to be a clear delineation between marketing and sales activities, even if in a small business it's the same person, but don't treat your marketing leads as if they're sales leads and vice versa. In fact, I've even seen advice that says you should never send your salespeople to an exhibition or a show, and I can't imagine anybody following that advice, because that's where the sales guys love to go. But actually, it's a marketing event. It's interesting, isn't it? If people are there just showing early stage interest in leads, they maybe don't want to be sold to. It depends where they are on their budget.
Well, it's an interesting point on the exhibitions as well. It sort of feeds into this. We've all been to exhibitions. You're collecting all of that data, and how you actually collect the data at an exhibition as well can also be automated. So, we do see sometimes people still got the old-fashioned list. They're writing things down, and then they've got to transfer it into a spreadsheet, and then maybe move it into a CRM. And you can imagine the amount of time that's taking. Whereas a lot of this now you can be automated. Just bip a QR code, and it pulls it right into the CRM. And it's about, I think, making an experience for this as well. It's not just about saving time for you as a business, although that's important. But we want consumers, customers now want a much better experience in terms of their interaction with you. So anything that feels a little bit janky or a little bit old-fashioned just really can have a huge impact on, do we want to do business with this company? We
still see companies going to exhibitions and not following up their leads for 2 or 3 weeks by the time they've got the email list from the event organisers and worked out what to do. Whereas we're also used to receiving an order confirmation instantly when we go online and buy something. So why not, when you've done something on a stand, why not get that email straight away, if you like, and just say, thanks for coming to stand, we've got you. And then the day after, thanks for coming yesterday, here's some interesting, based on what you said, and you've categorised them. You can do so much. It's very flexible, isn't it? I want to take a little slightly different angle here, and we'll come back to some of the automation that your leads and customers will see, and just think a little bit about the internal uses of automation as well. And I'm going to talk about sort of hygiene, housekeeping-y type things, as well as internal flows. So we talked earlier about sending a team colleague a notification when their contact's lead score gets high. That's an internal workflow. We can let them know that sort of stuff, or setting tasks. But if you think about some of the hygiene ones as well, often CRM databases will have all sorts of missing data. It may be missing surnames, or even missing forename and surname if it's just an email that's triggered their entry into the CRM. Maybe have a missing company information, or a contact owner, or even their buyer persona, or perhaps even as something simple as their GDPR permissions to contact them. So you can set up automations to alert the contact owner that a new contact has been entered to the system, but it's missing these bits of data. And you can then have further reminders, 2 weeks later, by the way, this one's still missing the data. And if you wanted to, you could escalate, and if after a month it hasn't been done, you can go to next level up. So there are all sorts of internal hygiene things that we've done before that just keep the database tight.
I think as well, that's where everybody who's been in business for more than 2 minutes is going to have seen a CRM that is just full of data that's incomplete, or trying to get people to fill in information, and marketing wants to know where the leads have come from. People are putting in other or things like that just doesn't help you in terms of achieving a kind of growth strategy, or being able to actually look at the data and say, well, what insights are we getting from this data? So having that ability to automate parts of the hygiene factors of the data, and actually I think then what we'll see often is the sales team crying out saying, well, we need to have better data to make our decisions, and the marketing team are saying, well, we need more information from the sales team in order to target the customers better, or come up with the next campaign and things like this. So actually everyone sort of working together to come up with a clean, useful set of data in your CRM then pays dividends downstream, because all of a sudden you can start doing things, you can start interrogating the data in different ways, coming up with different campaigns, segmenting quickly. And I think it allows you then to be responsive.
You've got to show value from it, though, and I've seen this time and again where you start to introduce a more rigorous approach to CRM use. Lots of companies have a CRM already of some sort, and they don't like the idea that it takes too much time to keep it populated, and they feel it's a machine they have to keep feeding for no reward. It's almost done for the sake of it. So you've got to make sure that the whole CRM and automation and marketing output coming from that shows value, almost to the point where if the people responsible for putting data in are missing data, then those contacts can't be contacted. So we don't get the benefits from doing that, but it does have to show a real reason for doing it to those that have the effort of putting it in.
Absolutely.
Now, something that almost allied to that, and it's another one that maybe your leads and customers won't see, there's definitely an internal benefit, is how we manage the deal stages within the CRM. Now, this is where automation can come into its own to make sure that the people responsible for following up sales leads are at least able to prioritize their work better. So, for example, you could set up an automation for some deal where there hasn't been any activity for a set period of time, and you may have different periods of time for different categories of buyer or where they are in their buyer journey. That could be one. You might have one set up to spot the lapsed customers. So if you know that you tend to have some sort of interaction with the customer, whether it be a purchase or even an opening of an email every 3 months or every 6 months, then you set your alert to say that this customer or hot lead hasn't interacted with us for this period of time. Just thought I'd let you know, and you put that through to the contact owner internally to let them do something. And there's another couple of ones that we've done now which lean more into analysis of how the sales pipeline is working. And once again, there's a whole new podcast on machine learning to analyze the data coming out of it and so on. But things like a push count is really useful to know. And that's an automated process where every time the close date of a deal gets pushed out to another date, it increments the push count by 1. So that's very useful to see that if a deal has had push count of 10, are we being strung along here by the customer, or is the salesman not really getting under the skin of when the requirement might land? So that's another good one. And the last one, which once again, a whole new subject to itself in measuring ROI on your marketing efforts, we set up a series of automations which flag both the contact or all of the contacts, the company and the deal with a flag which says that this has been generated by marketing activity. So if anything that triggers that to be a condition, so it could be that the contact has come through a form or been to an exhibition, or they were a previous lead but they've now started engaging with something on the website and downloaded some assets or whatever they've done, then once we flag them, any new deal that goes into the CRM belonging to that customer or that company or whatever, then that can get added up and reported on. And marketing people love that, to be able to say that not only have we got, however many thousand Facebook followers, which as we all know is a bit of a vanity metric, they can say we can put our hands on quotes worth £1 million in the last quarter just because of interactions that have been triggered by our marketing activity. And that's proved to be phenomenally useful.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point on the vanity metrics as well. So I think having all of this data coming into the CRM, the ability to automate things behind the scenes to maybe have calculated fields or collect different bits of data based on various inputs means that you can actually create a set of metrics that's bespoke to your business. So rather than just saying, look, we've done a load of marketing and we've got so many Facebook followers or so many Instagram followers or this many views on TikTok or whatever it is, that's all well and good. That could be amazing for your business, but for many times it's actually, well, so what that we've got? We had a client once that was getting 600,000 to 1 million views on TikTok, but probably did it ever turn into a sale? If it did, it would be very hard to tell.
Well, especially if you've got a UK business and a lot of those are coming from South Korea and America and India. It's a global platform.
So it's about using all of this to create something that's actually beneficial for your business, designed for your business. We don't all have to have the same set of metrics. And a lot of what this automation can do behind the scenes is help you get that data that you need for your specific situation.
Yeah.
So,
and I suppose this comes back to the strategy at the beginning. You've got to customize whatever you want all this automation to do to suit your company. There's no boilerplate here. You open up the software and it's got all of the settings already set for you.
Automation for automation's sake is just is pointless. It needs to have it needs to be pointing towards something.
It starts with a discussion, doesn't it? What do you want to achieve? And if you had 100 people in your marketing department or admin, sales admin, what would you ideally like them to do? And that's kind of the start of the conversation, because you don't have that many. But now we can automate it to make it look as if we've got that many. We can be sending out emails every 5 minutes.
Asking your team and saying, I remember speaking to a prospect once who was having to enter the same bit of data into 7 different systems.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because people, and I just think, the amount of time there, and there's all this work that's crying out to be done, but you're just having to repeat tasks and do all this. So the ability to, speak to the team, work out where the goal needs to be, what you're trying to achieve, bespoke for you as a company, and then work the automation around that. That's the key, I think.
Yeah. Now, I didn't want to leave this without mentioning the e-commerce angle. Not all of our clients, B2B clients in particular, necessarily have a big e-commerce platform, but it's more common in B2C type environments. And you'll probably be aware from just us all being consumers that there is an awful lot of automation already built into that. So whether you've got a Shopify integration or however you're dealing with it, we'll all be aware of abandoned cart type automations, for example. You've put something in the basket and you don't proceed, and lo and behold, you get an email within a few hours or maybe the next day just asking you to go back in and do it. It may be that you've completed the purchase and there's some follow-up email saying, now you bought this, what about buying that? Or we talked earlier about lapsed customers. That matters even more for that B2C or e-commerce type customer. How long do we leave it before we prompt them with something or send them an offer? So there's a whole suite of e-commerce related automations that you can think about, which very much apply to those sort of situations.
I think maybe in a more B2B application of that is maybe SaaS products. So the kind of onboarding tools that you get whenever you sign up to something, or some of the kind of, you've not used a product for a while, how about this new feature, and all of those sorts of things can all be automated, onboarding of customers.
And training and just giving a little bit more help to somebody once they've taken on board that product, whether it's a SaaS product or another product, and rewarding loyalty as well. Why not? It's the opposite almost of the inactive lapsed customer automation. You see, if somebody has made X repeat purchases or stayed a subscriber for a length of time, how many times do we get that thanks for being a subscriber for a year? It never happens. I think SaaS companies in particular are frightened that by being reminded you might unsubscribe and do it. But actually, if they're still using it, and maybe that's one of the triggers for whether you send that email or not, if they're an active user of your software and they've been there with you for a year, why not send them a thank you email or something anyway, just to acknowledge that fact. Now, A/B testing, you've done a bit of this recently. I was going to ask you how you'd done that, because I'm amazed at the sort of degree you can go into, really, and what you can get out of this.
Yeah, I think I've got mixed views on this. You should, if you've got the capability, you should always A/B test, because you are going to learn. And this is the whole point of marketing, is really, let's do a whole series of experiments to figure out what is working and what isn't working, do more of what's working, and clearly, think something isn't working, pivot, try something different. So A/B testing is a real useful tool for that. I think if you've got software that allows you to, if you're running an ads campaign, you can A/B test your ad, you can A/B test your landing pages. So if you are running ads, you should always be pointing them to a landing page, really, rather than just whacking it over to your homepage. You want the ad to be relevant to the landing page, but you can maybe A/B test and say, well, let's have a different video on the page, or let's have a different message on the page, or let's have a different call to action, or something like that. The key here is to not change too many variables at once, so that you can actually figure out what it is that's working. You don't want to go and do something too different. But I think another thing is that you do need to, depending on how scientific you want to be about all of this, there are tools you can use to work out whether or not your A/B test is going to be statistically significant. And typically, you're going to need quite a lot of people coming through your test in order to be able to make it, to say, hand on heart, this different color button made a difference. But that being said, most SMEs are probably not going to have enough customers going through it to make it statistically significant. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You can always.
No, but what I love about it is that it helps to solve so many arguments. Everybody's got an opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but without the data to back it up, it's just an opinion, right? So you may well have people arguing about the colour of the button, or which image to put at the top of an email, or whether to have a pop-up on a web page. Why not just put it to the test? And if most of the answers are the difference is not statistically significant, then don't sweat it.
Stop falling out about it.
Stop sweating the small stuff. Focus on some big things. Exactly. If nothing else, it takes it away from one of those discussion points.
And I think it does encourage a culture of, let's just try some stuff. Let's do something different. Let's experiment. Markets are shifting all the time. Customers' expectations are changing all the time. You've got to be able to be agile and adaptive in the way that you're approaching your marketing, and something like A/B testing just provides a great platform to be able to do that. So if you can A/B test your emails, A/B test your ads, A/B test your landing pages, even things like using smart content to A/B test things, if you've got that capability in your software, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, good. Well, I think that's about all that we've got time for in today's podcast. So thanks a lot for listening to that. Please subscribe to the SME Growth Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and tell all your business friends. In our next episode, we're going to focus a bit more on buyer personas, which we mentioned earlier on. And that's a subject that really at the beginning of lots of the discussions on everything we do around marketing automation and everything leading through to the whole of the rest of the sales process. So thank you very much, and good luck with your business.
Thank you. Bye.